Hi, Rainier. How you doing? I've got your work up here. This is, yes, this is this week's, and I see that a couple of things have changed. I see that you have changed the type over here, and that's pretty interesting. I have your, let me see, that's week 8, so, well, I thought I had your other, last week's piece open. But yeah, this is this week's. This is week 8. So you've changed your typography. This is interesting. I think it's better. Um, and we'll talk about that as we do have an inconsistency though, and that is this. You've got 22, and then you have the Roman numerals, and over here you have 22, and you've got the Olympic rings. So that's a little bit unusual that your logo mark can be extracted from the logo itself, but it wasn't. So that's an inconsistency. There's some weirdness going on in here, and let's just zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about. See that right there? I'm not real sure what those are, but I would go for definitely, and I mentioned that last week, solid presentation there. Okay, so we're into your introduction, and then I just want to say, I'm going to continue on with what I was saying last week. Boy, is just so annoying. Okay, I think that there's too much going on in your page. I really do. I just there's just it's just doesn't have any visual hierarchy, and that is really a concern. I started to talk about this a little bit last week. I think everything here is ready to be worked. It's everything can work. I just think the presentation is such that it's just so much going on that the type and the information and the real meat of the project is going to end up being the last thing that we look at. Because I open this page and I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at these patterns, and looking at the logo, and looking at these rings around the type. Then finally I go, oh, there's type on this page. I should read it. Okay, and then the same thing here. It's like, okay, wow, that's interesting shot. And what are these in the background? That pattern, what are those? We haven't seen those before. Then these rings, these unusually shaped rings, and then oh, so there is type on the page. Do you see what I'm saying? So, and I think that's really a concern. I think the visual hierarchy is suffering badly based on your decisions on your composition and their layout decisions. Okay, and another thing that is working against you, since you are going for that type of really a loud background, it would help the presentation if you were to anchor the type on the same spot on every page. At least that way, through this visual kind of obstacle course that we have to go through every page, at least we would know that the type is anchored at this position on every page, and it would set up a nice cadence so that a timing, a cadence, as it were, so that the viewer knew where the type was and knew where to get to the information if they needed to immediately. Okay, so that is something that you're giving the viewer their choice as opposed to making them look around, then see the type. See what I'm saying? Okay, and then I'm just talking about presentation now because we've talked about all of this. You should have your RGB CMYK color equivalents always listed. This type column here is wider than this type column here, so that's a typographic inconsistency. Other than that, I think we've seen a lot of this. Most of this we've seen, and the work is good. The presentation itself, I think, is lacking in terms of typography and visual hierarchy. So, other than that, I think you've done a great job. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to get with me. Thanks, man.